Hey Bill, how you?
Dude, it's been a crazy week, man. You wouldn't believe what's been going on around here. Oh, how's your week going?
Oh man. Yeah, I can't complain at all. You know me, I'm just out here living the BMX dream. But hey, I wanted to talk to you about a new series idea that I have.
Yeah.
Something where we kind of pull back the curtain on Torker. We let people see what's going on. Maybe we even talk to some of the former pros, let them tell their stories. We show off our personal rides. We let people know what our personal influences are and what's really driving us into the future with Torker. What do you think?
I love it. I mean, it's the best thing that we could probably do for BMX, but how do we start something like that?
Since you're the boss, I really think that you should be the one to start off this series.
Oh, shit. The whole way that this started is it came out of a business meeting. Torker had always been deep in my heart, deep in my roots, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. But we got approached in 2012. I think it was 2012. I'd actually have to go back and double check the emails and the notes. But I think it was 2012. And Redline was for sale. Redline had been having some tough years since they got bought out, and Redline was for sale. And during the discussions of it, I knew that Redline had owned Torker, and they had acquired it from Seattle Bike Supply, who, Seattle Bike Supply acquired it from Tioga, who acquired it from the bankruptcy, and, the whole long story of what happened. But I knew that they had killed Torker off once Excel bought Seattle Bike Supply, and they didn't care about it, but I knew they still had it. And they were like, well, yeah, we can toss that in. It's, going to be a line item. It's going to cost you. And, okay, great. So the one thing about this whole thing that a lot of people don't know is that when that was going on was right when I got first diagnosed with the first pineal mass. And it was probably the worst time for me to be looking at things. I'm having a neurosurgeon and a neurologist telling me, hey, sell your business, eliminate your stress, get out of it all, and enjoy as much time with your friends and family as you can. And for the first day or so, I'm like, okay, well, if that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do. And then I got the call again, hey, are you still interested in this Redline deal? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I've got an idea, because my wife, had talked to me about it, and Redmond, one of my best friends, from back in the day, rest his soul. He always used to joke with me. He's like, Bill, you're going to die at that damn desk, with the latest and greatest frame design underneath you. And this is just what's going to happen. I love BMX. I mean, we try and give what we can, and sometimes we give a lot more. And we had already been doing the Legend Bike project with Eddie Fiola and Pete Lonkarovich, and we had been doing some little things. But when this whole thing went down, I was like, well, okay, I've got a bigger idea. And I went to Joe Hawk at Haro and said, hey, Joe, I'd like to have a little bit of a meeting with you. And we sat down, and the original plan at that point was we were going to take Supercross, Haro, Redline, Torker, Speedline, and merge all of it together to become the new firm, to be the biggest thing in BMX. And John Bolgens was there, Joe Hawk. We were sitting down, and we were talking about this and trying to see if we could make it happen. And we had a few meetings, and Joe called me back and said, hey, Bill, unfortunately the investors here don't want to invest more into BMX. We're looking at electric bikes, and I'm going to be retiring in a few years anyway. And anyways, I don't know how we do it. We couldn't have two CEOs, and I was like, no, Joe, you'd be the CEO. I don't want to be the CEO. I just want to be the BMX brand manager. I just want to draw BMX bikes and build BMX bikes and have fun. And I don't want to run the business end of it. I don't want to have anything to do with that. You've already got John Bolgens to do the freestyle side. He'll do all the best freestyle bikes for Redline. We can bring back all the stuff. We can bring back all the Torker stuff. He's already doing the whole lineage line. We can go back and do some of the old Supercross stuff. I mean, you've got a great guy in there. Let's keep him there. Let me do the race stuff. Let me do the cool, fun stuff that nobody wants, that nobody cares about right now. And you oversee the business. James Ayers will take care of the sales. And I mean, I had this whole grand plan. And he's like, Bill, it sounds amazing, but our investors don't want to do it. Well, in that conversation, I did leak the Torker name a little bit and didn't put any emphasis on it. And when they declined, I went back and was continuing to negotiate on Redline. And the debt was just too high. And we were talking and talking and talking, and it just didn't work out. And they ended up selling Redline a couple of years later. I mean, it took a couple of years, but the original asking price was $16 million. Then it went down to $12 million. And then I think, and it's public record on Bicycle Retailer or whatever, that they actually sold it to the new company, Regent or Alta, whichever one is owning it now, for $5 and all the debt that they were carrying, which was a lot of debt. At that point in time, I had reached out to Alta or Regent and said, hey, did you guys get Torker in that sale too? Because I'd like to buy that. And I had Eddie King pushing me a little bit. You and I, David, had talked, and you at one point had said, oh man, I really loved my Torkers. I love my Supercrosses, but man, I loved my Torkers. And I'm like, yeah, I've got a thing for Torkers too. And you wait, something's going to happen. And I didn't tell you the whole thing about what was going on, but you had drawn up that e-bike for Eddie when Eddie had gotten hurt. And I was like, oh man, that would be great. I'd love to see that happen. And I was speaking with Eddie Fiola and speaking with Mike Miranda and speaking with Eddie. And, everybody was like, oh, Bill, you should do it. Just get the Torker name, get Torker, do Torker, do Torker. And, every time we'd start to do something, I ended up going in for a heart surgery or had a stroke and, all kinds of different things. And Jason Richardson was always telling me, Bill, just relax, stop. You need to stop. And yeah, okay, I need to stop. But at the same time, my wife, Yvonne, love her to death. And she always just tells me, she's like, this is your thing. You do BMX. This is what you do. And, just keep doing it. If I retired, what am I going to do? I'm going to do more BMX. This is what I've done since I was a kid. I mean, started racing at 7 and started working at SC at 12 and had high tech. And then, luckily part of the reason why Torker is so important to me is that I had a brief co-sponsorship from Torker while I was working at SC. And I love those bikes. I mean, it was one of those things to where when I was growing up, there was a local kid, Matt, that raced on a Torker when I had my FMF that I had gotten from Scott. And I always thought his Torker was cool. The team was always cool. They always had the best ads. I always thought that they were rad. I mean, it was Torker and SE. And, I got really lucky and really blessed that I got to be a part of SE for a little bit and, got to work with Perry and Byron and Scott and Devitt and, Kendall Crabtree was in there. And I mean, Jeff Utterback and, all the different welders, everybody that was there all the time, and watching Toby come in and out when he got sponsored by them, and Fred Blood when the whole freestyle side came by. And I had always asked Scott, please, come on, you got to sponsor me. Not now, Billy, not now. And I mean, I get it now, but back then as a kid, I just wanted to be a part of it, right? And Perry even told me a couple times, no, you don't. And, he left and actually went to Race Inc. for a little bit, which was kind of a weird thing. And, I got Torker to co-sponsor me until I kept breaking the bikes. And, we were poor and we didn't have any money. And, I'd take the bike back and they'd either re-weld it or they'd give me a new one. And after a couple of months, they just stopped. So, I mean, it was something that was always dear in my heart. And when we had this ability to try and buy it, it was like, yeah, you know what? I'd like to do that. And I've watched what Todd has done with SE, and I really admired what he was trying to do with Buff and Stu and Perry and keeping a bunch of the older guys around. And I like what Gork is doing with the Hall of Fame Museum and how he's trying to give everybody their legacy and their dues. But one of the things that I had thought about while I was in the hospital recovering one time was that BMX doesn't have a great history. And that's how Eddie Fiola and I started up Legend Bike Company, where we were going to try and start a Wikipedia page that was going to be BMX racing history. And each page would be, okay, here's this rider, Tommy Brackens. And as it tells Tommy's whole story, there's going to be links to every track he rode, every team he rode for, who his greatest competitors were. And then you'd click on that link and it would go to a page for Ascot and all the riders who came out of Ascot and all the teams that were there. And, the riders, when you click their names, whether you click Randy Rizzo or you click Mark Darcy or you click Randy Sifford or you click, whoever it is, Charlie Brackens, it clicks off and tells their story. And I wanted to make this be the biggest BMX knowledge base in the world. Well, Eddie was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's use the money from Legend and we'll fund that and make it happen. And Legend didn't really bring in any money. I mean, the collector market's there for a passion project and a fun project. It's not really to make money unless you're getting, Todd's doing great with SE with all those wheelie bikes. I mean, he's killing it. He's doing more than just BMX, and there's a lot more people that ride bikes than just active BMX racers. But I was like, wow, and my son was always telling me, well, Dad, you could do that with Supercross. And I don't feel that with Supercross, even though we've been around for 36 years and we've had some amazing riders, Ken Fallon, 3 #1 Vet Pro titles, Anthony Dean, #2 Pro, Samantha Cools, 3 #1 Pro titles, Bubba Harris, Mara Strombergs, Danny George with the #1 amateur title. Billy Harrison, Eric Jones with winning, a AA national down in Atlanta, Jason Donnell. The list of riders that we've had have been amazing, but I personally don't think that Supercross has the history that a lot of companies do, and I still get asked all the time when people will call for Torker, hey, so Supercross owns it. Where'd Supercross come from? And it's like, wow, we've been around for 36 years, but we started when BMX was on such a decline and the magazines were going out. So you didn't have 200,000 kids picking up a BMX action from the newsstand and handing it off to their friend and, really saturating the market. Nobody's riding their bikes to school anymore. It's not the cool thing anymore. Freestyle became the big thing. Mountain biking is absolutely huge. There's maybe 10,000, 11,000 active BMX racers in the USA, and there's like 11 million active mountain bikers in California alone. I mean, it just, BMX is such a small niche. I was like, Supercross just isn't it. And I was like, you know what? Maybe with Torker. I really like Torker, and you had shown me the bike that you had done for Eddie, and Eddie and I talked, and Miranda and I talked, and Fiola and I talked, and they're like, Bill, just do it, just do it. And everything just kept becoming a hurdle, you know. Oh, well, this person doesn't own it, this person owns it. No, it didn't get sold off in this auction, and no this, and we had to deal with 5 different attorneys, 2 different corporations. It became a huge thing because at one point, Excel licensed off the Torker name, but didn't retain ownership of it. And that went up to someplace up in Canada, and they dropped the ball. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. And then there was someone down in Australia still trying to use the name, and it just got really bastardized. And in my thought process, I was like, man, that's not what Torker is. It's not what the roots are. And I want to go back and I want to tell the story. I want to tell the story. And part of why, once we had spent damn near over $100,000 in legal fees, attorney fees, registration fees, you know, sales, different things, before we announced it, before we did anything, I had Eddie get a hold of the Johnson family for me. And the Johnson family lost the company in bankruptcy, you know, 40 years ago. They owned the brand less than any of the other people had the brands. But to me, they were the OGs. They were the ones who started it. They're the ones who had Doug Olson and Doug Davis and Clint Miller and Eddie King and Mike Aguilera and Jason Jensen. And, you know, they're the ones who really started putting Torker on the map. Kevin McNeil, you know, when BMX was first really becoming a true sport and going out to the masses. And my generation, the 45 to 60-year-old guys, I don't have, you know, Harleys or big motorcycles. I do, but I like to have some cool BMX bikes, you know, also some cool cars. And, you know, we're older now, and we can get stuff that we weren't able to get back when we were poor little kids, having to beg for mommy and daddy to, you know, buy us something, or saving up the money from the paper route and taking back bottles to recycle and trying to get something. And I wanted to bring back that nostalgia. I wanted to bring back the fun. I wanted to bring back the memories and the history, and having great friends such as yourself, Eddie King, Mike Miranda, Eddie Fiola, that knew what I was trying to do, giving me that little nudge going, come on, Bill, you can do it. If anybody can do it, you can do it. You know the industry, you know this, you know what's going on, you know how to do this, you can make it happen. And I was like, man, I really loved my Torker. I really think it was cool. And I dug my old 26-inch out, and I would look at it every once in a while. And we actually even talked, Eddie Fiola and I, when we almost didn't get the brand, I was like, you know what, screw it. We're going to do a double top tube frame, and we're going to call it the Model T, and it's going to be the Legend Model T, and we're going to use that to start this, and we're going to use this money to help fund this Wikipedia thing. And, you know, it just had been something that had just been burning in my head. And people say that I'm stubborn, I guess. And if I get this idea in my head, I mean, if you tell me, hey, you can't move that mountain, but I really want to move that mountain, well, damn it, we're going to move the mountain. You know, we're going to figure it out. And that's what we ended up doing with Torker. And we got it figured out. And once we got the Johnson family approval, we had the trademarks done, the copyrights done, everything done, then it was like, well, great. Now I've got to invest more. Now I've got to do more because I can't just sit on this name. I got to do it right. We've got to give it its honor so that we can make sure that we can tell the story. And I want people to know why Eddie King is so great and why Clint Miller is so great and how he's one of the nicest guys out there. And Miranda is amazing, and how, back when he was a kid and I was a kid, he was so generous and paying things forward, and why all these people were such great people and why they made that brand so great. And I wanted to bring that back, and I wanted to tell that story. And I think, I hope we're doing that justice for them.